Today we're going to be working on solving two-step equations with decimals. Alright, let's go ahead and look at question number 1. We have 5/10 x minus 8/100 equals -1 68/100. Okay, I want you to pause this video, go ahead and write that down, try that on a piece of paper. Then we are going to go over it. You can go ahead and do question number 2 as well. We're going to go over 1 and 2. Okay guys, like the last 2 days, the steps for solving the problem remain the same. We're just going to isolate our variable by getting everything onto the other side and making the x by itself, okay? So first thing we need to do is get our constant that is on the same side as the variable gone. So to do that, we need to take the opposite or inverse operation. So if I have minus 8/100, to make that 0, we would add 8/100. If I do it to one side, we have to keep our scale balanced, so we're going to do that to the other side. So I'm going to add 8/100. Since our signs are different, we are going to subtract. So 8 minus 8 is 0. 6 minus 0 is 6. Carry down your decimal and then bring down the 1. And it would still be a negative because 1 and 68/100 is bigger than 8/100. Carry down our 5/10 x, and you have 5/10 x equals -1 6/10. The inverse of multiplication is division, so we are going to divide each side by 5/10. And if you look over here, so you have 1 6/10 should be inside the division house, 5/10 on the outside. We cannot divide if we have a decimal in our divisor that's on the outside, so I have to move that one place to make it a whole number. And then to keep it even the problem, we have to do the same thing to the dividend. So we would be left with 16 divided by 5. All right, 5 goes into 16 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. If I subtract 16 minus 15, I have 1. Bring down a 0 because we cannot have a remainder. Add our decimal up top. And 5 goes into 10 2 times, and that is how I got 3 2/10. And last but not least, we go back and check our signs. I have a -1 6/10 in the problem divided by a 5/10. So the answer is -3 2/10. For question number 2, we have -1 5/10 p plus 25/100 equals 3 25/100. So we're going to isolate our variable by getting rid of the constant on the same side. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. We subtract 25/100 on each side. We would be left with -1 5/10 p equals 3. The opposite of, let me zoom out here so we can see it a little better. The opposite of multiplication is division, so I divided by 1 5/10 on each side. You do not have to write the decimals after the 3, so when I divided, I just put 3 divided by 1 5/10. When I move my decimal, I have to add a 0, and you should be left with 30 divided by 15, which is 2. Last but not least, we're going to go back and look at our signs. I have 1 positive, 1 negative. So the answer is -2. Alright, now that we've tried problems numbers 1 and 2, I want you to go ahead and write down 3 and 4. Pause this video and you're going to try practice problems 3 and 4. Okay, so now you should have had a chance to try practice problems 3 and 4, so we're going to go ahead and go over them. Problem number 3, we have x over 3 and 2/10 plus 1 6/10 equals -5 4/10. So first thing we need to do is get rid of our constant that is on the same side as the variable. You're going to do that by taking your inverse operation, and we would subtract 1 6/10 on each side. and I would carry down the x over 3 2/10 on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, your integers, if you have the same sign, you have to add. So negative 5 4/10 plus negative 1 6/10 equals negative 7. All right, so we're left with x over 3 2/10 equals negative 7. We're going to divide by 3 we're going to multiply by 3 2/10 on each side. And negative 7 times 3 2/10, I worked it out on the right-hand side, you can see here. 7 times 2 is 14, 7 times 3 is 21, plus our 1 for the carryover place is 22. We have to move our decimal back in one place, and I have 22 4/10. Last step is to look back at our signs. They are different. If you are multiplying or dividing with different signs, then the answer would be negative. On question number 4, I have negative 75 hundredths times x plus 25 hundredths equals 4 75 hundredths. So again, like the last three, we're going to get rid of our constant that is on the same side as the variable by subtracting 25 hundredths on each side to keep it balanced. We would be left with negative 75 hundredths times x on the left side equals 4 5/10 on the right side. So we have a multiplication problem, so the opposite is division. We would divide by negative 75 hundredths on each side. So I have 4 5/10 divided by 75 hundredths. You cannot divide with the decimal in the divisor, so I move it 2 places to the right. I also have to move it 2 places to the right in my dividend. I like to rewrite the problem, and I would have 450 divided by 75. It goes in, 75 goes into 450 6 times, and you would get, it goes in evenly, and so your answer would be 6. The last step is to go back and check your signs. We have one positive and one negative that we were dividing by. So because our signs are different, the answer has to be a negative. So x equals negative 6.